You cancel plans and feel relieved. You need hours alone after being around people. You would rather stay home on a Friday night than go to any party. And the moment you finally get the house to yourself, you feel completely at peace. Society calls this a problem. Psychologists call it something very different. And today we are going to find out exactly what is happening inside the brain of someone who prefers to be alone. Most people who prefer solitude have spent their entire lives being told something is wrong with them. Be more social. Come out of your shell. Stop being so antisocial. But the science tells a completely different story. People who prefer being alone are not broken. Their brains are actually wired in a way that makes solitude not just comfortable, but necessary. And understanding why changes everything. Here is the first reason. People who prefer solitude process dopamine differently. Dopamine is your brain's reward chemical. When most people socialize, their brains release a flood of dopamine. They feel energized, stimulated, and rewarded by the interaction. But research shows that people who prefer solitude have a more sensitive dopamine system. Their brains reach the threshold of stimulation much faster. What feels like a fun party to one person feels like sensory overload to someone with a more sensitive dopamine response. This is not a flaw. This is biology. The brain that prefers solitude is not broken, it is simply reaching its optimal stimulation level much faster than others. And when that threshold is crossed, the brain does not say enjoy this. It says escape. This is why being alone does not feel lonely to these people. It feels like relief. Like the brain finally getting to breathe. Here is the second reason. People who prefer being alone tend to have an extraordinarily rich inner world. Their default mode network, the part of the brain that activates during rest and solitude, is significantly more active than in people who need constant social stimulation. What does this mean in practice? It means that when they are alone, they are not doing nothing. Their brain is processing, creating, connecting ideas, solving problems, and generating insights at a very high rate. Solitude is not empty for these people. It is full. Full of thought, full of creativity, full of self-understanding. This is why many of history's greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators were known for their love of solitude. Einstein, Newton, Tesla, Kafka. They were not antisocial. They were deeply engaged with their inner world in a way that required silence and space. For a brain that processes deeply, the presence of other people is not just distracting. It is genuinely cognitively expensive. Here is the third reason. People who prefer solitude often process emotional and sensory information more deeply than others. They notice more. They feel more. A conversation that takes 10 minutes of energy for most people takes 30 minutes for someone who is processing every word, every tone, every implication beneath what is being said. This deep processing is a gift. It makes these people incredibly empathetic, highly observant, and unusually perceptive. But it also means that extended social interaction is not just tiring, it is genuinely draining in a neurological sense. The brain has been working at full capacity the entire time. This is why after a social gathering, someone who prefers solitude does not just want quiet. They need quiet. The same way a muscle needs rest after intense exercise, their nervous system needs recovery time after intense social input. This is not weakness. This is a different but completely valid way of engaging with the world. Here is the fourth reason. People who prefer solitude tend to have a significantly stronger sense of self. When you spend a lot of time alone, you spend a lot of time with your own thoughts. You develop a very clear understanding of what you value, what you believe, what you want, and who you are. You become much harder to manipulate. Much harder to pressure. Much harder to pull away from your own values and into someone else's agenda. Research consistently shows that people who are comfortable with solitude score higher on measures of psychological resilience, emotional stability, and personal identity clarity. They are not lonely. They are complete. They are not running away from people. They are running toward themselves. Here is the fifth reason. People who prefer solitude do not hate people. They are deeply selective about people. Because their social energy is limited and precious, they invest it only where it genuinely matters. They have fewer friendships, but those friendships are extraordinarily deep. They do not make small talk. They make real conversations. They do not collect acquaintances. They cultivate connections. Studies show that people who prefer solitude report higher satisfaction in the relationships they do have, precisely because they choose those relationships deliberately and invest in them fully. The person who needs 50 friends to feel connected is spreading themselves thin. The person who prefers solitude and has 3 deeply trusted people in their life is not poor in relationships. They are rich in the only way that actually matters. So what do you do with this? 3 things. Starting today. First, stop apologizing for needing alone time. It is not a personality defect. It is a neurological need. Treat your solitude the way an athlete treats their rest day, and not as laziness but as essential recovery. Second, design your social life intentionally. You do not need to attend every event. You need to attend the ones that genuinely matter to you. Protect your energy ruthlessly and invest it where it gives you real return. Third, use your solitude as a superpower. The deep thinking, the self-awareness, the creative processing that happens when you are alone, that is not wasted time. That is where your best ideas live. That is where you become the person others cannot fully become because they never stop long enough to meet themselves. If you watched this alone right now, and you felt seen for the first time in a long time, that is not a coincidence. Comment the word alone below if this described you. And if you want to understand more about how your brain works differently from most people, the next video is already waiting. Subscribe so you do not miss it. You were never broken. You were just built differently. And now you know why.